Hi, I'm Mandy Mioch and you're watching A News. Here are the headlines. Vladimir Putin says Russia ready for a missile duel with the US. The 8th summit kicks off in Cairo. Azerbaijan becomes first new member. Volodymyr Zelensky meets NATO leaders in Brussels to discuss security guarantees. Thank you for tuning in. Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested a missile duel with the United States that would show how Russia's new Oreshnik hypersonic ballistic missile could defeat any US missile defense system. He issued the challenge during his annual press conference, answering questions on a range of topics, including the nation's surging inflation.
Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed the nation's economic challenges and relations with the West during his annual press conference on Thursday. Speaking on inflation and economic overheating, Putin acknowledged the difficulties caused by rising prices. He warned that inflation is set to exceed the central bank's target, reaching around 9.3% this year, while real wages have grown by 9%.
There are some issues here, namely inflation, a certain overheating of the economy, and the government and the central bank are already tasked with bringing these rates down.
He also suggested that the central bank could have acted sooner and that sanctions and a poor harvest contributed to the inflationary pressures. Putin noted that while the economy may grow by 4% this year, it would likely slow in the next due to the tight monetary policies. On Russia's missile capabilities, Putin addressed skepticism over the country's new Oreshnik hypersonic missile, proposing a, quote, high-tech duel to demonstrate its superiority over U.S. missile defense system.
We propose them and those in the West and the United States who pay them for their analysis to conduct some kind of technological experiment, a high-tech duel for the 21st century. Let them name some object, let's say in Kiev, concentrate all their air defense and missile defense forces there, and we will hit it with the Oreshnik and see what happens. We are ready for such an experiment. Is the other side ready?
Regarding the ongoing war with Ukraine, Putin said he was open to negotiations with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Putin reiterated his willingness for talks.
Politics is the art of compromise, and we have always said that we are ready for both negotiations and compromises. It's just that the opposite side, in the literal and figurative sense of the word, refused to negotiate.
During the press conference, Putin also expressed that relations with China had reached historic levels, with both countries aligning their actions on the global stage.
In Egypt, the Developing 8 Organization for Economic Cooperation's summit opened in Cairo. Leaders are set to talk on investments and security issues.
The D8 summit in Cairo, held under the theme Investigating in Youth and Supporting SMEs, Shaping Tomorrow's Economy, is scheduled to hold a special session on the situation in Palestine and Lebanon. The leaders of the major Muslim developing countries are attending the summit, along with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, Lebanese caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati, and Azerbaijan's Prime Minister Ali Asadov. Developing 8 Organization for Economic Cooperation, or D8, represents a significant economic market, with member states having a combined population of over 1 billion and a gross domestic product of around $5 trillion. Established in 1997, the organization aims to strengthen its members' positions in the global economy through increased economic cooperation, trade diversification, enhanced international participation, and improved living standards.
Still on the D8 summit, Azerbaijan was unanimously elected as the new member of the Developing 8, marking the organization's first expansion since its founding. According to the Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry, this reflects the country's growing global influence and the trust it earned internationally. The D8, established in 1997, unites Muslim-majority countries with significant economic potential, fostering cooperation in trade, transport, communication, and other sectors. Current members include Bangladesh, Indonesia, Iran, Malaysia, Egypt, Nigeria, Pakistan, Turkey, and now Azerbaijan. As the world keeps its eyes on Syria after the fall of Bashar al-Assad and the formation of a new government, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that Ankara and Beirut will act together for stability in Syria.
Addressing a press conference with Lebanese caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati, the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, announced a collaborative effort with Lebanon to ensure stability in Syria, lasting peace in Gaza, and broader regional stability.
Lübnan'ın güvenliği bölgenin istikrarından ayrı
Lebanon's security cannot be evaluated separately from the region's stability. Without ensuring a ceasefire and a lasting peace in Gaza, our region cannot know calm.
bölgemiz huzura kavuşamaz.
We also count on the role you enjoy and the active presence in the region and the world, especially in light of the radical political changes taking place in our geographical surroundings, especially in Syria, which is witnessing an Israeli occupation of part of its land, and we must exert strong pressure to end it immediately.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that Israeli troops will occupy a buffer zone inside Syria for the foreseeable future. The move is aimed at protecting Israel's security interests. Tensions remain high across the region, but the coordinated efforts of Ankara, Beirut, and the European Union offer a glimmer of hope for lasting peace and stability. Earlier this week, the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, met EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in Ankara to discuss Syria. Both reaffirmed their commitment to Syria's sovereignty and the goal of fostering an inclusive government.
Turkey welcomed the EU's recognition of its candidate status, calling it an accurate and realistic approach. Ankara also praised the resumption of high-level economic dialogue and European Investment Bank activities in the country. The statement follows the EU General Affairs Council's annual conclusions on the enlargement process. In them, Brussels said Turkey remains a candidate country and a key partner in many areas of joint interest. A UK Royal Air Force's Eurofighter Typhoon fighter jet landed in Ankara for inspection by Turkish officials. The country earlier expressed interest in buying these jets, jointly produced by the UK, Germany, Italy, and Spain.
The arrival of this jet provided an opportunity for Turkish officials to observe the aircraft closely. Turkish Defense Minister Yaşar Güler announced on December 14th that 2 Eurofighter jets which recently participated in a drill in Qatar would arrive in Ankara to allow Turkish authorities to inspect the aircraft. Güler also emphasized that discussions regarding Ankara's potential purchase of the Eurofighter jets were progressing positively. Eurofighter Typhoon warplanes are a joint production of the UK, Germany, Italy, and Spain. While Ankara has expressed interest in acquiring the warplanes, the process has been complicated by Germany's objections, as approval from all producing nations is required for the sale. In recent years, Germany has largely blocked arms sales to Turkey due to domestic political pressures in Berlin and differing foreign policy stances, primarily influenced by the Greens Party, a coalition partner for Chancellor Olaf Scholz.
A series of Israeli airstrikes struck targets in Yemen, including energy infrastructure in the capital, Sana'a, after Tel Aviv said intercepted a missile fired from Yemen.
Early Thursday morning, sirens blared across central Israel as a missile launched from Yemen was intercepted by the Israeli Air Force. The projectile, which triggered a loud explosion, was heading towards the country from Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. While no casualties were reported in Israel, debris from the interception caused significant damage to a school in Ramat Gan, near Tel Aviv, where the main building collapsed and classes were canceled for younger students. In response to the missile attack, the Israeli military confirmed conducting a series of precision airstrikes on Houthi military sites, including ports and energy infrastructure in Sana'a. According to Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, a spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces, these sites were strategically used by the Houthis in military operations. Masirat TV, the news outlet controlled by the Houthi movement, reported that Israeli strikes also targeted the port of Salif and the Ras Sisa oil facility in Hodeidah, killing at least 9 people. In addition, central power stations both south and north of Sana'a were hit. Later, fire trucks were seen responding to a power plant in Sana'a. The Houthi group, which has launched numerous missiles and drone attacks against Israel, has justified these actions as solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza, who have been under heavy Israeli bombardment since October 2023.
For more on the airstrikes, we go to our correspondent, Trent Murray, in Tel Aviv.
Well, that incoming missile siren sounded just before 3 a.m., sending Israelis here in Tel Aviv and central Israel into their shelters. Explosions were heard, and we are now being told by the Israeli Defense Force that one of those missiles fired from Yemen did in fact land in a school. Photos released here in Israeli media show significant damage to a school building and debris in a playground. It is understood that the missile was struck by the Iron Dome air defense system, but as its debris fell, its warhead did manage to hit the ground, which is why we've seen that significant destruction. But given that it was at around 3 in the morning, the school, of course, was empty and there were no children inside. The IDF quickly springing into action, though. We understand Israeli Air Force jets making that 2,000-kilometre journey to Yemen, launching a wave of airstrikes in response, both on the capital, Sana'a, and also the port city of Hodeidah. They say that they were targeting Houthi military infrastructure and sites. We saw photos of significant explosions at power stations, oil storage facilities, and also port facilities. Now, we know that this has been happening for some time. The Houthi have been stepping up the number of attacks on Israel, both with drones and ballistic missiles. And they are saying that they are doing this in support of the people of Gaza, who, of course, continue to be under siege from this ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. But the Houthi really are now quite isolated in many ways, with that ceasefire still appearing to be holding between Hezbollah and Israel in the north, and of course with Hamas seriously weakened by the 14 months of war there or so, and of course proxies in Syria now taking a backseat given the fall of the Assad regime. It really only leaves the Houthi, which are continuing these attacks as part of that so-called Iranian-backed axis of resistance. The US, the UK have been launching their own airstrikes on Yemen in response to all of this and those attacks on international shipping. But despite those continued airstrikes, it appears the Houthi are continuing to launch these aerial attacks. There is some discussion underway here in Israel, certainly in the media, that the IDF has prepared major strike plans to try and, quote-unquote, decapitate the Houthi rebels. They say that plan is now sitting on the desk of the Prime Minister and the government, waiting for official sign-off. Again, the Houthis say they are doing this in support of the Palestinian people in Gaza, where we understand those ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas are still ongoing, both in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, as well as the Qatari capital, Doha. Trent Murray for A News, Tel Aviv.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held talks with NATO and European officials on Ukraine's security needs. Zelensky described the meetings as a valuable opportunity to address both immediate and long-term security guarantees for Ukraine.
President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and European leaders during his two-day visit to Brussels. Zelensky stressed the need for a unified position among Ukraine and its international partners to strengthen Ukraine's defenses. Mark Rutte showed his support and indicated the alliance will do its best.
Very much high on the agenda is to make sure that the President, his team, Ukraine are in the best possible position one day, when they decide so, to start the peace talks. And that means that we have to do everything now to make sure that when it comes to air defense, when it comes to other weapon systems, that we make sure that we provide whatever we can. We know
Zelensky highlighted the importance of the meetings to align Ukraine's future security and noted that reliable guarantees were crucial for achieving lasting peace.
I think it's a very good opportunity to speak about security guarantees for Ukraine for today and for tomorrow, as you said. Well, almost everything said. But it's really very important that to use these 2 days in Brussels to meet with all our partners and to have the same, what is very important, not divided, the same joint position of Europe.
Rutte reaffirmed NATO's commitment to Ukraine, including the provision of air defense systems and weapons, with $1 billion pledged in security assistance this year. He also announced that NATO's command center in Wiesbaden, Germany, is now operational, aiding Ukraine's troop training and security efforts.
allies remain committed to delivering on the financial pledge of 40 billion euros in security assistance for Ukraine this year. And the NATO command in Wiesbaden for security assistance and training for Ukraine is now up and running. But we must go further to decisively change the course of this war.
In addition to his talks with NATO leaders, Zelensky also met with French President Emmanuel Macron to discuss the potential deployment of foreign peacekeeping forces in Ukraine. This proposal, first raised by Macron in February, according to Zelensky's post on X, no consensus has been reached during informal meeting, but the two leaders continue to explore the possibility.
Over in France, Gisèle Pellicot thanked supporters in a speech outside court after her ex-husband, Dominique Pellicot, was jailed for 20 years for drugging her and recruiting strangers to rape her. 50 other men have been sentenced alongside Dominique in a mass rape trial which has shocked France.
A French court found all 51 defendants guilty in a drugging and rape case that horrified the world and transformed the victim, Gisèle Pellicot, into a stirring symbol of courage and resilience. Pellicot's ex-husband, Dominique Pellicot, had pleaded guilty to drugging her repeatedly for almost a decade, to rape her, and to offer up her unconscious body for sex to dozens of strangers he had met online. A panel of 5 judges sentenced him to the maximum 20 years in jail, as requested by prosecutors. Despite enduring years of unimaginable trauma, Gisèle Pellicot chose to make her trial public to inspire other survivors to come forward and break the stigma of shame. Her bravery has sparked nationwide protests and demonstrations in her support. While some defendants claimed they believed the acts were consensual, Dominique Pellicot has stated they were fully aware of their actions. The trial has reignited calls to reform France's rape laws, which currently do not explicitly require consent, focusing instead on proving intent through violence or coercion. Unlike in some other European countries, French law makes no mention of a requirement that sex involve consent, and requires prosecutors to prove a perpetrator's intent to rape using violence, coercion, threat, or surprise. The Pellicot trial stands as a powerful moment, demanding justice for survivors and urgent action to combat sexual violence.
The official death toll from the impact of Cyclone Chido in Mozambique has risen to 45. Nearly 10,000 houses were destroyed, with some villages left with almost no standing buildings. Close to 200,000 people urgently need humanitarian aid. In neighboring Malawi, the death toll has risen to 13 after the storm, which hit continental Africa following its passage through Mayotte. French President Emmanuel Macron has landed on the Indian Ocean archipelago of Mayotte, days after the French overseas territory was hit by a devastating cyclone. At least 31 people have been confirmed dead so far, but local officials fear the complete toll could be much higher, reaching hundreds or even thousands.
Cyclone Chido has killed at least 31 people, with local officials fearing the death toll could rise to thousands. More than 1,300 injuries have been reported. On Wednesday, supplies began arriving in Mayotte to address critical needs, including food and water. Residents flocked to distribution points and wells, desperately filling jerry cans and buckets as water supplies remain severely disrupted. Some turned to rivers for laundry and personal hygiene.
We have no choice. The water is very, very dirty. We shower with it, we scratch ourselves. It hurts us a lot. But we have no choice, especially for the children. When they shower, they scratch themselves a lot.
We haven't seen anyone from the government and all that. For the moment, we have hope. We were told that there was help on the way. So for now, we organize ourselves as the best we can. For example, we have made our well available to people. It has been in use since the beginning of the crisis. Every day from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., lots of people come here.
Authorities in Mayotte have pledged to restore running water to half the population by this weekend. 120 tons of food aid continues being distributed in France's poorest overseas territory. An air bridge from nearby Reunion Island has been established, and the ship carrying over 100 containers of aid is en route, expected to reach Mayotte within 3 days.
Less than 24 hours after the cyclone hit, there were already 3 air rotations on the runway in Mayotte, which is close to commercial traffic, as you know. We have a considerable increase in power of the resources committed by the state. Already there are 9 flights, 9 round trips to Mayotte, state planes and Air Austral planes that are chartered by the state.
French authorities have shared footage of bottled water and food being distributed in Pamanzi, with gendarmeries and soldiers ensuring the security of the operations. However, the full scale of the damage remains unclear, with relief efforts hampered by inaccessible areas and ongoing infrastructure challenges.
In some lighter news, for this year's holiday season, a new concept of Santa Claus is being introduced. An AI Santa is answering children's questions through the screen.
Welcome to Santa's study. Now,
normally we use AI engines such as ChatGPT to ask questions and receive prompt answers. But this Christmas season, Ask Santa is a fun interactive program that lets kids chat with Santa Claus one by Breakthrough T1D, a nonprofit gathering donations for type 1 diabetes research.
I'm so very proud of you for being on the nice list.
Santa Claus, how many reindeer do you have?
Oh, I have so many I couldn't even count. But you know, I have the famous Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen. And of course, Rudolph.
The program uses Storyfile's conversational video technology, combining AI with pre-filmed content to create safe, real-time interactions for children.
Away from you. So, if I seem a little slow with my answers, it might be a problem with my Wonderland Wi-Fi.
It is so amazing, the technology behind Ask Santa. Storyfile interviewed Santa for hours and hours on end. There is no going out to the internet like ChatGPT or other AI platforms. The questions are all in the database. Santa can't hallucinate. He can't make up crazy questions from ChatGPT. It is a safe and secure platform for your kids to talk to Santa.
Originally developed during the COVID-19 pandemic, Storyfile partnered with Breakthrough T1D this year to use Ask Santa as a fundraising tool.
I don't see you there. The nice list.
Well, that's all from us for now. Thank you for tuning in and keep watching A News.